Today we're talking about one of my favorite food groups, the bacon food group. If I want to really knock somebody's socks off, I might reach for a little lamb or goat bacon. Bacon can come from a lot more than just a pig. And there's more than the belly that you can use on a lamb or a goat and a number of other different animals, venison for example, that you can make bacon with. For example, boneless lamb ribs. These will have a similar composition to belly with your meat and fat ratio. My favorite is literally the belly, or what you might call flat meat. And then, kind of the other one that doesn't get talked about too much is the fat cap that comes off of a rack of lamb. And all of these could be cured and smoked and cooked to make lamb or goat bacon. The first thing to do is make a cure. And this is really easy to do at home. All you need is a couple ingredients. The most important being a scale. Using a scale and weighing not only our seasonings like salt and sugar, but the meat means that we can ensure really consistent seasoning without oversalting or undersalting. I have my spices weighed out here, but if you have to, you could get bulk spices and you could just put them in and measure them with your measuring spoons. That'd be fine. Another important thing that I like to do is toast my spices. I'm gonna start off with a little black pepper, a little bit of whole cloves, allspice, and then I'm gonna put a little bit of grated nutmeg at the end. We're gonna toast the spices just for a couple minutes, about medium-high heat, until I can really smell the aromas. After the spices are toasted, I'm gonna put them in the spice grinder. Unless you want your coffee to taste like bacon spices, you probably wanna use a separate one, or just make sure you clean it really, really good. Put our spices in the grinder. And one thing you might not know is you can grind bay leaves in a spice grinder too. I like to tap it, give it a good shake. Make sure I'm getting everything really finely ground. There's nothing like the smell of freshly toasted ground spices. After the spices are ground, we can make the rest of the cure. First thing I'm gonna do is use some brown sugar. For this, I like a really nice, dark brown sugar. It helps give it a nice burnished brown color. About 8 ounces. Next is salt. The only thing really to know about salt in a cure is that large grains of salt, like rock salt or something like that, are gonna take a long time to break down and create the kind of slurry juice that's gonna help the meat cure. So the finer the salt that you use, the faster the cure you will have. So I like to use kosher salt. It's kind of a great all-purpose salt, and that's gonna work just fine for what we're doing. So I'll tare my scale, then I'll add a good 4 ounces of salt. Then the secret ingredient, one of the most important things, is pink salt, sodium nitrite. It's a curing salt, so this is going to really help give the bacon some great flavor that you associate with great bacon and other cured meats like ham, pastrami, bologna. Any meat that's pink after it's cooked has probably been treated with nitrite. So it's a preservative, which is going to extend the shelf life, but it also gives a really, really particular good flavor to the bacon. And this is something that you probably won't be able to get in stores, but it's easy to order from butcherpacker.com, which is where I get a lot of my bacon and charcuterie supplies. Really easy to order. But again, one of the reasons that you want to use a scale, because it's important to know exactly how much pink salt you're going to put into a recipe. And there's a lot of talk too about artificial nitrates, natural nitrates, nitrite-free bacon, things like that. Well, let me tell you, celery juice that a lot of new organic recipes and companies like to use, they might use celery juice or celery powder and say, hey, this is nitrite-free, or this is only natural nitrites. Well, if your nitrite is coming from pink salt, or if it's coming from celery juice or celery powder, at the end of the day, it's still nitrites. And it's still gonna make the meat pink. And either way, it's pretty much the same thing. I like to use pink salt because this is a controlled amount. And I know exactly how much I'm putting into a recipe. About 20 grams pink salt. And next, we add the spices and we mix everything up. Give it a good tap, get the spices going. Just dump those guys in there. Just give it a really good mix. Mix it all up. And the smell that comes off of those fresh spices, like I talked about, is just ridiculously good. Complex, sweet, spicy. And with the amounts of spices and things that we're using, this batch of cure is going to make more than you need for a small batch of bacon. So the cure can be stored in a fridge or even outside of the fridge, and it's going to last a long time. A good couple months, the spices will really keep their strong flavor. All right, so the cure's all mixed up. Now all we have to do is measure out some cure and rub it on the meat. I'm gonna start with our belly. And what I do, I just take a bowl, and then you want, again, I weigh things, and for each pound, it's gonna be about half a cup of cure. Sprinkle the cure all over both sides of the meat. And then the fun part, we get to massage the meat. And you really, really want to rub and massage. Take your time and rub that meat down. It should take a good 3-4 minutes of rubbing, especially if you're using brown sugar with kind of large crystals like I'm using. It might take a minute for them to kind of soak into the meat. And eventually what's going to happen is that the meat's going to make a kind of slurry when it comes into contact with the cure, and it'll get kind of juicy. We talked about a couple different cuts that you can use to make bacon from a lamb or a goat, and the fat cap is like it sounds. It's a fat cap. So if I'm curing a fat cap, what I like to do to help it render the fat out is I take a sharp knife and just like a duck breast, I'm going to score it with kind of a crosshatch pattern. And that's just going to help some of that fat come out while it cooks. And then to also help ensure that more of that fat comes out, whenever I can, I'm going to cook this scored fat side down. Just because of gravity and contact with the pan is going to help even more of that fat come out. And then if I really have some extra time, after it's cooked, while it's still warm, I might press it with a weight to really press that fat out and kind of compress it into a nice little beautiful bacony chunk. A whole lot of bacon. So after the meat's rubbed with the cure, we let it sit in the fridge for a good 48 hours. And I'll try to turn it over in the bag and let the juices kind of redistribute as often as I can remember. You don't have to really obsess about it. So you might be thinking, making bacon at home sounds amazing, and it is, but I don't have a smoker. What do I do? Well, it's easy to make bacon and a lot of other smoked meats at home because you're hot smoking, and you can really easily improvise a hot smoker using a grill. A couple things to know is that the wood chips need to be soaked in water for, say, 24 hours. You'll notice a little bit of bubbles on top as the wood starts to ferment, and if you leave that on the counter, it is one of the worst things that I've ever smelled after a couple days. But after 24 hours, it's not going to be bad. So you want to make sure to drain the wood chips, but you want them thoroughly soaked. The other thing to know is that with the grill, you want to take your coals and you want to put the coals, when they're nice and white hot, on one side of the grill. Because we want to hot smoke this thing so it's going to cook with indirect heat, but we don't want to char it. And because there's sugar in the cure, charring could happen really easily if we put it directly over the coals. So push the coals to the side and make it easy on yourself. So all we're going to do, we got our nice hot coals, we got our wood chips that have been soaked in water. And like I said, it's not an exact science. So I'm just going to put a couple handfuls of wood chips on those hot coals. And I'll use a spoon or a tongs, distribute them a little bit. Then I'm going to close that lid, put our bacon on the grill, put the lid back on, and just let it do its magic. I can already see a little bit of smoke coming out. Pretty soon, there's going to be a lot of smoke, and then we're going to be in business. The bacon business. So it's been about 45 minutes that our bacon's been in the smoker, the grill smoker. I can see that the smoke has died down, so we're gonna take the top off and see what it looks like, and it's a little bit like taking a ribbon off a Christmas present. That is a thing of beauty. Burnished, mahogany-looking smoked meat. I can't wait to cook it. One of the nice things about lamb and goat bacon too is that because the bacon is a lot thinner than a pork belly, it smokes a lot faster, and it's also gonna cook a lot faster. So, for what it's worth. It's gonna be great. So our bacon just came off of the grill, and it's kinda cooked, it's hot, but we need to cook it a little bit longer, just like other bacon. So I'm gonna put it into an oven at about 300 degrees. I'm gonna put it into just a little roasting pan. And the key here is I'm gonna put a little bit of water, just about half an inch or so, and a little bit of parchment, because I kinda wanna steam the bacon. I want to make sure that we cook it nice and low and slow, because we don't want to really like brown or char it at all. We just want to break down some of those muscle fibers so that they relax and they get nice and soft and tender. So a little bit of parchment helps to hold in some of that water, and that helps to create the steam. And then a little bit of foil. And we'll probably cook this guy for about an hour and a half to 2 hours at about 300 degrees. So after the bacon's done, I chill it down, and after it's chilled, that's gonna make it so it's easy to portion. If you try to cut into the bacon while it's still warm, it's probably gonna fall apart, and that's not gonna be fun for anybody. I don't usually just cut it into slices and bake it like I'm going to with pork bacon. And the reason is that there is a bit of connective tissue that kind of runs through some of this muscle, and it can be a little chewy. So here, it's kind of hard to see, but it just runs through the middle. So what I like to do is I dice it. 99% of the time, if I serve lamb or goat bacon or mutton bacon, it's gonna be diced. It's gonna be cut into little cubes, big cubes, kind of whatever I wanna do. And then, just like regular bacon, you fry it up in a pan, and nothing has made your breakfast hash taste so good. Shepherd's song plants squash and turnips to grow in the fields so the lambs and the goats and sheep can eat them. So I think it's really fun to serve a little bit of the goat bacon with some turnips and a little hen of the woods. But the turnips and the turnip greens and a couple garlic chives. Quick toss, and that looks like a nice plate of vegetables.